So I'm really pleased with all that's going to be taking place this fall. And you're going to hear a bit more about that with the workshops that are coming up in September. I'll share more, and I believe Kali will too. But this morning, we're going to kind of dip our toe in some of what it means to disagree and how we can love one another amidst disagreement. So there's a lot that we can learn. There's beautiful ways we can listen. And we're really pleased for this time of Braver Angels, and Kali's going to share a little bit about Braver Angels itself. But before we begin, I'd like to begin us with a prayer. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. O God, who created all peoples in your image, we thank you for the wonderful diversity of races and cultures in this world. Enrich our lives by ever-widening circles of fellowship, and show us your presence in those who differ most from us, until our knowledge of your love is made perfect in our love for all your children. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. So our speaker this morning is Kali Kucera, who is a certified Braver Angels moderator and who's co-chair of the Memphis Chapter of Braver Angels. He's led workshops in both in person and online, both local and the national scope, since 2021. And he spearheaded its national effort on a development of interactive depolarization experiences. He talks about those as games and exhibits. He's a member of the Memphis Friends, our Quaker friends, and maintains an unruly but gorgeous cottage garden. Would you help me welcome Kali Kucera?
Oh, very good. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so for those of you not familiar with Braver Angels, let me just give a kind of a 100,000-foot view. Braver Angels has everything to do with politics by having nothing to do with politics, the way we know it, or the way that we're accustomed to it. We are a disruptive force of thousands of volunteers, citizen volunteers across the country on both sides of the political aisle who are invested in turning political conversation on its head. We're all united in being sick and tired and fed up with the tone of rancor in politics and want to replace it with a tone of respect. We want to put people talking to people back in the center of what democracy means. And so we're doing that community by community, citizen by citizen, through our workshops and other events. The phrase I like to use, because this is a large and complicated ground game, is the metaphor of the front porch. If you want to kind of capture Braver Angels in a metaphor. The front porch is where we all kind of settle in and settle down for an invigorating exchange of ideas, maybe after a meal, etc., something like that. And we sit there and we think and we listen to each other. We get surprised by ideas that we haven't heard of before from people we didn't know they would come from. And we laugh and we think of how to keep this conversation going and how we can help each other kind of build on something that we come up together. So that, in essence, is the essence of Braver Angels. And if you want one of these bumper stickers, you can talk to me afterwards about membership. I can kind of give you some details about that. It comes with the package. Let's say that much. Okay, so let's start here with this image. This is a very, very familiar kind of image that we're used to from kind of American life. And why don't people kind of volunteer in looking at this image? Tell me what kind of negative aspects you see in this image. We're going to get to the positives too, but tell me first, what do you see that's going on in this image that's negative? Anger. Anyone else? Huh? Loudness. No one is listening. Okay, some positives. What do you see that's positive about this image?
They're facing one another.
Facing one another. Both men and women. Passion. Okay. And so this is secondary to Braver Angels. We come back to this image, but it's not the center of what Braver Angels is about. And what I want to show you what's next is this image. What do you see that's going on here? No communication. Disengagement, good. They're not facing each other. This is the deeper underbelly of what's happened over the past several decades as the conduct of our political discourse has eroded and degraded. And this is what Braver Angels is about as a means to an end of having healthier political conversations like in the previous slide. And sadly, this doesn't end here. This is a total breakdown of communication, as you said, not facing each other, but this is personal. And with this malady on our hands, everything else about our social fabric in talking about ideas about the future and what we need to do in the political arena breaks down entirely if we have this kind of one-to-one reality on our hands. And it doesn't stop there. The easiest and most often response to this is to calcify, is to shut down. And when we do that, what happens to our dinner tables and our front porches? We have all of these things that are now banned. We don't discuss ideas anymore. We're forbidden to talk about feelings and dreams, expressions of our doubts, our experiences. You can't talk about that unless it, in case it wanders into politics. And we can't just present a problem and talk about a solution, because just talking about the problem is probably going to be lead to some kind of animosity. So the question for us is not about in Braver Angels who is right and who is wrong. We're not debate coaches. We are not interested in kind of, figuring out who can win or who can best who. Braver Angels doesn't coach people on how to do that. In fact, pretty much the opposite. We teach people to stop trying to be right. Stop trying to win. That's like that first half of that bumper sticker I showed you, the humility part. Stop trying to win. And so when we let that sink in, we may think that, well, does that mean losing, trying to lose? And we say no. We really encourage people to hang on to their political convictions and bring them to the table as a way to find an opening. Not trying to win doesn't mean trying to lose. It means trying to find an opening for something to do together that hasn't been tried before. So that brings us to our mission. bring Americans together to bridge the political divide and strengthen our democratic republic. So I really want to emphasize here that this mission didn't really start from a book that we read or some cave painting on a wall. This began with real people, real American citizens, discovering this essential and elemental problem with our democracy that had gone wrong after the 2016 election. And it started in New Lebanon, Ohio, where 10 Clinton voters and 10 Trump voters in New Lebanon, Ohio, which is it's a exurb outside of Cincinnati. They got together because they realized that the election didn't solve anything. In fact, it was going to make things worse. And we think, maybe, well, 4 years later, did that make things better? No, it did not. It was still the same situation. And so these voters and neighbors got together, and they sat together and bound and determined to figure out how they could have a conversation on public policy issues without hating each other and leaving the room, keeping each other as neighbors and as friends. Well, not only did it work, they did this with the help of Braver Angels co-founders, Bill Doherty and David Lapp and David Blankenhorn, and they led a workshop together about experiencing and encountering each other and mending their relationships. And not only did they leave that workshop respecting each other when they thought that might not be possible, they ended up leaving the workshop liking each other better than when they came in, really liking each other. And so it was the beginning, and then they found out they needed to start a bus tour because more and more communities around the country wanted them to do this same workshop, and it took off like wildfire. And since then, we have done thousands and thousands of workshops in small towns, big cities, country churches, everywhere around the country, helping people who disagree with each other disagree better. We don't have to come to agreement. We just need to know how to disagree better, which brings to mind a phrase of Abraham Lincoln, our friend, who said something very similar that captures the ethos of Braver Angels in his time. Whoop. I don't like that man. I must get to know him better. That's the key of Braver Angels, and kind of why we borrowed a lot of his language, including his language of his first inaugural address, to come up with our name. Better Angels was how we started. Then it changed to Braver Angels because Ken Burns said, you can't use that. That's the name of my documentary company, so I'm afraid I'm going to have to sue you. But it was a blessing in disguise because Braver Angels much better works because it takes a lot of courage and bravery to do this, whether you're a citizen or whether you're a Braver Angels advocate at the very highest office like Governor Pete Cox, Dean Phillips in Minnesota, Republicans, Democrats, etc., who are taking the braver way of carrying this message forward. I'm going to skip the next slide in the interest of time, but this is a really fascinating study that we can talk about later from the Institute of Politics about perceptions versus reality, about how we think about the people who are opposite of us politically. Okay, so where are we? We're now all over the country, everywhere, including in Europe. So expats abroad are also finding they're in disagreement. You can't just leave America and figure out, well, if I live over in England or Germany, the problem will go away. It doesn't. And so we have alliances also in Europe. 106 now, we're about approaching 15,000 members. And we have lots and lots of workshops, state coordinators, co-chairs. Every alliance, which is a chapter, we call it alliances, but it's a local chapter, and it can't exist unless there like in all of our leadership roles, you have your leadership represented by one conservative and one liberal, etc. Someone who leans red and someone who leans blue. That allows a chapter to happen. And so that's where we are. Sometimes it helps to compare and contrast about the things that we are not, for people to kind of better understand. We're not a think tank. We are not pundits. We're not lobbyists. We're not religiously affiliated. We take part. A lot of our workshops happen in churches and synagogues, and now some mosques. But the one that I really want to turn your attention to is this one right here. Because I think it's easy to think, oh, Braver Angels, that is a movement for centrism, or it is a movement to speak from the middle. And I say no. No, we're not apartisan or bipartisan or nonpartisan. We are cross-partisan. And what that means, can anybody volunteer what you hear in the difference between cross-partisan versus nonpartisan? You know? Pretty good. Yes, he was saying that, what's your name? Murray, saying is that nonpartisan tries to take neither side, cross-partisan tries to take both sides, which is pretty darn good. I just want to emphasize cross-partisan as an activity. It's a doing action. It's not a trying to find an existence in which we're not interested in either side. But actually, we want people to be partisan. We want them to understand what their convictions are about, and then go on a journey with them over to the other side. Bring your baggage with you, and put it in the middle of those people that you have a disagreement. Because in Braver Angels, they're going to welcome you. They have learned through the workshops about building a tone of respect in which they really crave having this conversation and hearing ideas that are not their own. They're people that want to get out of their own echo chambers and want to hear what reasonable arguments are from the other side on any issue. So that's just a helpful kind of comparison chart to understand how things are different about Braver Angels. We've been in the news all over the place now. Judy Woodruff just did this wonderful series on the NewsHour. Much of it was focused on Braver Angels' work, not all of it, but all the conservative news outlets, liberal news outlets, etc., lots of newspapers. Do you notice which newspaper is not on here? Nope, Wall Street Journal. Oh, it should be on there. I know we're in the Wall Street Journal, several times, in fact. Yes! Commercial Appeal and Daily Memphian are not on this list, even though the Tennessean is. We have not been successful in finding enough time to kind of really get ourselves represented locally in the newspapers. But if any of you can do that, by all means, sign up and help us out, because it's not my particular strength. But now, I should say, one of the other key advocates at our very beginning for getting Braver Angels started in Memphis was David Waters. And you know David Waters as kind of our veteran champion of journalism locally. So he did all of the major introductions for us and got Mark Luttrell, for example, on our early advisory committee, and making sure that we were talking to people with balanced in a situation of balance on both sides of the issues. So David Waters was very instrumental, but as far as being in an actual commercial appeal article, etc., it hasn't happened yet. That's what we're waiting for you for. Okay, what makes Braver Angels unique from other similar organizations, one of the, I think, 2 or 3 ways, is that much of our approach is based on family and therapy and marriage therapy. So you might ask, well, Kali, are you saying that Braver Angels is trying to take the whole country to therapy? And I say yes. Now, 20 years ago, there may have been a stigma about that, but I think we've matured as a society, and we say, you know, therapy is kind of a good thing. We actually have a sense of self-improvement by just doing all kinds of therapeutic practices and exercises. And so our main founder, our architect, so to speak, of Braver Angels is Bill Doherty, who is a professor of marriage and family therapy at the University of Minnesota. And he's the one you see kind of on a lot of our pictures. But the infusion of marriage and family therapy techniques and ideas are all throughout our curriculum. And that's heavily what we use to repair that situation like you saw on that slide near the beginning of the couple, not facing each other. And then we mix in with that, our approach, some lessons learned from jurisprudence and political science. And then as our organization grows, lots and lots of other professions lend their skills and expertise from their fields of expertise as well. So it's really gone beyond this. But it's really the core aspect of what Braver Angels does and why it works is we are very therapeutic focused. Our process, this should be more like a circle than a stair steps, but this gives you the basic idea. Step one is we build local alliances like here in Memphis, and then we, and those have to be balanced, like I said. Then we bring people into workshops and events, and we try to get them familiar with the techniques and the methods that we use. Some of those are, like the ones that we're going to be doing here over the next couple of months, are skills-based workshops. Others are more interactive. And then after that, we encourage people to apply those skills in settings that make the most sense for them, whether that's be at your workplace or whether it be talking to a public official or at a PTA meeting or in your own family. There's all kinds of different settings that you can take the skills and apply them as you go. All right, so that brings us to what's going to be happening here. And I like to kind of use that as a way of framing the two basic kinds of workshops that we have and what their names are. So we have skills-based workshops and interactive workshops. Skills-based workshops, like the ones here at Grace St. Luke's, are going to be skills for disagreeing better, which used to be called Skills for Bridging the Divide until the National Governors Association gave us a better idea because they started applying Braver Angels techniques with governors, including Governor Bill Lee, who is a supporter of us. Family and politics is another one you're going to be invited to. That's going to be in October. And Depolarizing Within is another one that's going to be held at Bart House, but that's not going to be here. So, but that's a separate. All of those are going to be happening in the Memphis area over the next few months. Interactive workshops, we did one a couple of years ago with mostly members of St. John's. It was open to the whole city, but a lot of members from St. John's came to that one, like the Red Blue workshop. If you watch the Braver Angels documentary, that's about the Red Blue workshop. It's our flagship, so to speak. It takes a lot to organize that, but the interactive workshops are characterized by actually requiring equal number of people who lean red and people who lean blue to come together in the same space and actually go through some exercise, encountering each other and working through actual public policy exercises to see where they find some common ground. Common ground is another one where we choose a specific issue, like I just finished one on voter ID. Amazing, amazing experience. And the goal of that one, Common Ground, is can we choose a topic, and then we challenge the equal numbers of people to, reds and blues. We say, we want to find unanimity by the end of our workshop on something related to this issue. And Everyone believes it can't be done, but actually the one I just did back in June, we came out with 7 points of agreement on voter ID and eligibility and accessibility between reds and blues. It's amazing how it works. So those are just kind of the framing of our 2 basic types of workshops that you would experience in Braver Angels. And you're going to be, over the next couple months, these 2 over here are going to be happening right here in this very room. Other kinds of lots of stuff that we do beyond workshops. We have debates. Our debates are very unique. They're not the kind of debates that you see, the presidential debates. They actually encourage community participants to come and give like 2-minute speeches on a specific subject. And then we have people who are prepared to come in and they lead or kind of start off the debate. But there's lots of other characteristics about them that make them feel very welcoming to debate rather than, a sense of fear having a debate. And a lot of them happen in living rooms. Some of them are online, etc. Let's see. Braver Politics is taking our workshops actually into halls, legislatures, and Congress, etc., and policy-making bodies. Faith-sponsored workshops is kind of new, and then my own bailiwick here is on games and interactives, where we take a lot of the material that you have in Braver Angels and we take them to state fairs and conventions, etc., and allow people to engage with Braver Angels content in a very short, rapid engagement. 5 minutes, and you can learn a lot of stuff about Braver Angels. So those are some other kinds of things that we do. Lots of people would want to know about, well, what's your impact? Where's this making a difference? This is just a sampling of outward impacts that we have. I'm just going to let you kind of read it, and I'm not going to go through the whole list. But the key thing that I kind of want to highlight, back to that slide with the 2 people not facing each other, the best measurement of our impact is personal stories of transformation. If we can't repair relationships one-on-one, we're really not being effective. All this stuff is kind of nice outcomes, etc., where you have like senior citizens forming role model training. We're just letting people be entrepreneurs, however they think of something that can be applied in a very unique way to go and do it. Some of them actually take our lessons into city halls and say, hey, we're Braver Angels. We're both conservative and we're liberal, etc., and we want to add a stop sign. And we haven't been able to add a stop sign to this intersection for 50 years because it's a controversial issue. Well, starting from now, it's obviously not controversial. So that, naming a situation that happened in New York with that. We have lots of student debates going on. We just had one up in Jackson, Tennessee at Union University, which was really, really excellent. And you would think that maybe that's really going to be a one-sided debate. No, not at all. From within the university, there's lots of surprises that had where people had differing opinion than what was expected or assumed on the issue of the death penalty. That's what they were discussing up at Union University. So it was an excellent debate. Lots of other stuff that's going on here. Those are our local impacts. We could talk about a lot more. This just some statistics. 68% of our participants in our workshop, after taking the workshop, had a positive view of the other side after the workshop. Going into it, much lower. After participating in the one-on-one conversations, which is one of our programs where you just deal with one person for 2 weeks who is your opposite, 97% of those participants say that they found common ground after having that relationship happen. 75% of participants in our programs say they'd likely share what they learned in our workshops after taking them. Really, really, really good numbers. And I'll just kind of leave on some personal testimonials here of people. But look, folks, the outcome of the election is not really the focus of our effort. That's we are still going to have to deal with the dreaded day after, one way or another. And there's no reason to doubt that we may be just as politically divided the day after the election as today or before, if not more. That's the pessimistic or the realistic part of it. And there's no harm in saying that now rather than try to deny it later. But here's the joyful part of it. Here's the upside, is that you can now be prepared to turn the tide. And you have 8 years of experience behind you with thousands of people having gone through our workshops who are ready to put the wind in your sails. Lots of citizen entrepreneurs, what I call them. This is a bottom-heavy organization, meaning that we rely on citizens to come up with how to progress the mission forward. We don't expect people kind of in our national office, which is very thin, to be the architects. So you have all of these people that are ready and so eager for new people to find the transformation from our workshops that they have had too. The positive and powerful experiences are being used in impactful ways, as I've just shared, in more and more. So these are just some examples of what Braver Angels is doing, and we have some real practical ways for you to get involved. When Abe Lincoln used the phrase bonds of affection, I truly believe that what he was trying to get at in his days, he was trying to get beneath the belly of political rhetoric of his time too, and try to find the essence of American citizens, what bound us together. And I think that he was inviting us, in using his term, to ask the questions of each other. Are you willing to see the human in me as I'm willing to see the human in you? We may not like what we see, but at least we can be honest about it and not feel harmed by it and agree to stay together. And regardless of the case, let's do our level best to see each other that way and find ways that we can work together. And in so doing, we can find common grounds on public policy that will be unique and different than the way that we've approached it in the past. So at the end of your liturgy, I know you say, with gladness and singleness of heart. So thank you very much. I'm going to take some questions, but if you want to do some preview or excuse me, tell people about registration.
Maybe you have some questions around the workshops, but hopefully the flyers that are around the seats will help answer some of those questions. And for those in the back, we've got plenty up here. But we'll have 2 workshops. We couldn't put it all in a forum hour, which kind of makes sense, right? To do skills and to pair up with one-on-ones and try out these things that we're learning. So we thought we'd feed you lunch. Yes, we're going to feed you. And after church, the first one is September 15th. From 12 to 2:30, and that one is on how to listen and share even when we disagree. And the second one is in October on the 20th. It's a little longer. I have to smile when I say it's a little longer because this one's about family and politics. So we need a little longer, right? How to talk with loved ones when we disagree. And this one is from 12 to 3:45. There's lots of information in terms of in the e-news, on Realm, and online on the website around Justice Ministries. But it's important that you sign up because we're going to get a head count for lunch. So go ahead and do that and bring a friend, bring a few friends, and let's learn about this together. And maybe Kali can share a little bit about what we'll be doing skill-basing in those workshops, or maybe you have questions along what he just shared a little bit about. So I'll open up. If anybody has questions, I'll bring the microphone to you. Anybody want to ask or check in anything? Ruthie.
I'm curious to know about the demographics of the people that you reach. Are there millennials involved, perchance? And talk a little bit about how hard it is for people to get to humility.
Last question first, hard, but cathartic when they do. Humility is one of the very, very hardest things for us to master, especially in a culture of success. And also the other emotion that I would say is difficult for people to deal with that I found mostly through games is fear. And I believe you just did a workshop on fear, just in the past few months, etc. Something about, I saw it in your newsletter. Courageous conversation. Oh, okay, all right. So fear, both and humility are hard things to confront, but we have gentle ways of introducing it to people that are feel, oh, well, that wasn't so hard once we kind of talk about it a little bit more. On the demographics question, yes, we have millennials. Since the pandemic, when we kind of went online and we stopped doing just in-person workshops, that's really exploded in terms of our demographics across race, across gender, across age groups, et cetera, rural, urban, et cetera. That I don't want to say the pandemic was a blessing in disguise, but it did open up a whole new channel of engagement that we didn't have before. So yeah, you'll see lots of pictures of millennials and students. We have a whole segment of Braver Angels that focuses on universities and colleges, and kind of lets them be on their own channel, on their own, have their own power. It's called Bridges USA. It's a major partner. So largely, still today, the majority are over 50, and that's why I talk about our. The challenge that started this is that many of us have a memory of civil conversation from our past who are older that we have lost in the past couple of generations. Millennials didn't have the benefit of this. And that's why we felt it's so urgent to pass on a recovery of civility in public life so that coming generations could have this basic citizenship, a social craft in their toolkit. Is that it? Answer? Okay.
Other questions?
Hi, I'm David. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how the skills from Braver Angels might fit in an online or a social media space, because at least from my perspective, a lot of the fear that comes from political disagreement is not so much stuff that happens face-to-face, but more so what happens online. And so I'm wondering what Braver Angels can do to help us, not just with these face-to-face interactions, but those times where we interact with each other in online spaces and social media, what have you.
Great question. We actually have a workshop called Braver Angel Skills for Social Media, which I have not discussed. I've actually cut myself off from social media as soon as I moved to Memphis. So, but that was a personal decision. But we do have workshops specifically focused on social media engagement, and then we have like this 3-step primer on how to interact with people without taking the workshop. It's a 3-step primer on working with social media. So it is taken very, very seriously. I just haven't led a workshop myself on it, but they're available.
No? All right. Well, Kali, thank you. Okay, Kali will be here after service and is going to be with us in service. And I really encourage you to take these flyers with you and sign up because all of what we're doing is so important in terms of so many reasons, with wellness and health. And that's a big part of what's coming up around sabbatical and what Ollie will be doing and what we'll be doing, but the health of our spirits, the health of our mind, the health of our bodies, and being in community together. So we really hope that you will join us in these workshops, and hope that this time today has kind of piqued your interest and desire to do more. So next week, we will be hearing from the sabbatical committee on health and wellness. I'm looking at Hallie, I'm looking at Matt, and I think they're going to be leading a big part of that with the rest of the committee. So please join us then to hear more about all these ways in which we're deepening our health and wellness. May we give Kali Kucera a round of applause, please. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord.